Alright, hello everyone, this is long time since I streamed, I think. I can't actually remember, there's been a lot going on, moving to my new place and everything. So today anyways, I want to start making a Pac-Man clone if the title of the stream wasn't obvious. And so hopefully I can get it done in under, 1.5 hours, 2 hours-ish, because that's how much time I want to put into this today. Whilst we're waiting for a bit more people to come in, I'm just going to start making the sprites and everything, because that is the most boring part. So, hey JC, how you doing? So I'm going to make this 32 by 32. I'm going to make everything 32 by 32. I don't actually know what the normal size was, but I don't want to think too much. So for this, I'm just going to have a yellow circle, and I'm going to cut into it afterwards. Hello to the Akara, if that's pronounced correctly. And looking forward to Pac-Man. Yeah, I wasn't sure what to do, because I was thinking maybe Snake or something, or like light cycles. But I realized Pac-Man had interesting enough behavior with all the AI and whatnot. So, wait, I think it starts off closed or something. 2D Realms is asking nothing, just hopefully surviving the weekend. Yeah. Let's make this a bit wider. I think it goes up to like a 45-degree angle or something. I don't think it really matters the art right now. I'm mostly interested in the code, and I think you guys are mostly interested in the code as well. But for these streams, I like to start off with, at least something. Graphics, well, that's the same size. Something like that. I could copy the same frame again, but this is just as fast, and I'll delete this one. So what is this looking like? I mean, I'll have to slow it down, maybe get 5 frames a second. That's too slow. 10 frames a second, that seems about right. I mean, it should open a bit more, but I'm not gonna worry. Yeah, the sprites for Pac-Man are easy. So, yeah, we have our player sprite. Now let's work on a tile map for the level. So I'm going to create another sprite. S tiles. And I need to think about how big I want this to be. So each tile is going to be 32 by 32. And we need... Is it a 16 or a... Let's create a tile set now so I know what size I'm going to need everything to be. Let's call this level. Oh, I need to select the sprite first. Fair enough. Auto tiling. There's 16 and there's 42, but I think 16 should be right. No, I need the 42 tile set, I think. Which is gonna mean a lot of different things, but we can do it. So, edit. No, that was import. Edit. I actually have a tile set actually sitting somewhere on my computer. I can probably bring it up and use that instead. So I have, I probably have it in here. Sprites, collision, no, it would be under platforms maybe, nope. Oh, terrain, that's probably it. Yeah, I can probably use that. And draw over it to get all the right tiles. Actually, I can probably import the tile set, create tiles. No, I can probably reuse the same tile set, so I don't have to do all the auto tiling again. Or I need to add existing or something. Add existing. Yeah, it's right here. So now I can delete this one, delete this one, Oh, I don't like the naming on this. I don't like the naming on SPR as well. I don't know why I had it that way. And this should be TS, and I remove underscores. Alright, so MMM Games is asking, when Game Maker 4 had Pac-Man example, well, I don't even think I'm that old. Well, no, I am, but I cannot remember Game Maker 4. I think I started around Game Maker 7, end of 7, start of 8. And self-pull, good. Yeah, having your pants off is the recommended way of watching my streams. So I'm going to delete these two things here, add a new layer, and this is going to be the actual damn, I can't think today. The actual tile set. So I'll just do double thickness like this. I don't know what the actual thing is, and someone is knocking on my door, so I'll be right back. And I'm back. So yeah, having templates lying around is really nice for that. And no, it wasn't the SWAT team. I just got my HDMI cable back, but it's a bit too late because I already started my stream. But that's okay. This is a bit boring. I guess I could just use those tiles without making them blue. I think I'm going to do that for now. I'm going to just turn this off, keep it like this for now, and I will change them later when I feel like it's worth it. So let's close this for now. Let's create the player object. So the way I'm going to do this is give the player a current direction and a target direction. So I'm going to put this full screen. Is it big enough, by the way, the code? I can make it bigger if you need it, because I know my stream is pretty low quality. So this is just going to be init the player. We're going to give the player as I said, a starting direction, and I'm just I could use a number for that. Yeah, I'll use 0, 2, 3. So var dir is equal to start off 0, which is going to be to the right, and then var target, sure, it's good enough, equals 0. And or I could call this buffer actually, because technically it's going to be an input buffer kind of thing. Before that, we're also going to define directions. Actually, I'm going to do that later in a separate script, because we're going to be reusing that for the ghost. But basically, we're going to have an array of arrays, which are going to help us know the direction, like the difference in x and difference in y based on our direction. I'll do that later though. So we know what direction we're going in and what direction we want to go in. Let's also get a speed. Cannot use that again. Underscore speed is going to have to do. And that is going to be the how many tiles we go per second. Am I going to delta time this? No, I'm not. Or how many frames it takes to, and let me think of how I want to best do this. I could just use the built-in movement. And then, but then I would run into the issue of skipping over things. Or I could lerp between different directions, which I think may be a bit nicer. Yeah, so I'm going to have just underscore speed is equal to, and this is going to be number of tiles per second. Sure. And I'm going to delta time this just because I can. And we can say that it takes about 1/4 of a second or something like that to cross a tile. We can change it later. And I think that's basically what we need for now. So I can go inside the step event of the player. Boop, boop. And that's going to be moving the player. And well, we need to create a new script because we need to have all the direction information. So I like having a big macro script sometimes. However, here I'm just going to have, I'm going to just create a macro. It's not a long-term project. It doesn't matter if it's not really well organized. So in here, we're just gonna define some macros. And so we're gonna first of all define also globals as well. And I want this to work forever. So I'm actually gonna use GML pragma first. So GML pragma allows you to run special things at compile time. And here I'm gonna use the global keyword, which means I'm gonna run some code on the game start outside of any objects, and I'm basically just going to run macro, and this is going to allow everything in here to be initialized because I'm going to be having global dirs. Let's do _dirs just because it's a global that I kind of want it hidden. So I'm going to say global _dirs equals, and then so we have 0, which is going to be a difference of x in 1 and 0, like so. We're then going to have 1, which is upwards. We're going to have 0 and -1. Then we have 2, which is leftwards, so that's going to be -1, 0. And finally, we have downwards, which is going to be 0, 1, like so. And I'm going to have macros. So I'm going to say macro, it's hash macro. So I'm gonna have to find a good name for this. I used _dirs, which isn't very good. It really is directions to differences. I'm just gonna say dirs, whatever, and I'm gonna set it to global dirs. The reason I do this is because I don't like using globals, so I kind of wrap them in a macro. It essentially comes down to the same as using global var, but global var has lots of issues, so I think it's a bit nicer that way. It really doesn't change much. I'm going to have an enumerator of directions. So I'm going to say dir. I'm using, that's a lot, and I'm going to have left, right, left, which is, no, I'm going to have right, which is 0. I'm going to have up, which is 1, left, and down, and they should all be fine. I should actually rename this to diffs, or like it really doesn't matter. So yeah, so now we have this all right. So inside the step event, we are going to make our player move in the right direction. Before I do this, let's go quickly inside here and actually use our enumerator. So I can do dir is it? Oh, I already used. Oh, rename that to direction. There we go. So I can do direct over here equals directions directions. Am I doing something wrong? Directions. Oh. Here we go. Directions dot right. So we're gonna start off going right, and our target is gonna start off being right. So next in the step event. All right. So what we're going to do is, oh, I probably need a t as well. So I'm gonna have t equals 0. So t is going to hold our current progress from one tile to another, because the way we're going to move is from tile to tile, but we don't want to snap in place. So we're going to lerp from each tile to tile. So we're going to have here t plus equals delta time, because we're going to delta time this. Oh, here's a thing that's annoying. Delta time is in microseconds. So I'm actually going to create an extra macro, which I'm going to have right here. which I'm going to call dt, because dt won't mean much else for me in this project. It will always mean delta time. And it's going to be delta time over 1 million. And put parentheses just because you never know what you're going to write afterwards. So t plus equals dt. Gonna drink some tea. And now we want to move our players. So we have we should probably have the previous thing we were on. So I can write let's do it this way, var x underscore pre-x is going to be good enough. It's going to be equal to x, and var pre-y equals y. And I'm doing it that way because it's going to be easier later on. So I can say var x2 equals pre-x plus there's at position direction. Oh wait, no, it's there. Yeah. Oh, I varred it. I should not var this because it's going to be used across different places, and that should not be varred either. Okay, like that. And so, oh yeah, and ooh, that's not going to work well. I should probably say var d. Well, we're using lots of abbreviations today. I don't recommend that, but yeah. So here we're getting the x component of the direction that we're currently going in. And then we're going to do the same with y2. That's equal to the previous y, or the y that we were on, you know, before. And we're going to add d1. So in case you didn't get it, our direction holds an index within that array, and that array here holds another array. And it's basically the x and y component of each of those directions. So what I can do now is lerp to my x2. So I can say x is equal to lerp of my x pre-x. Was it pre-x? Yes. And x2, and the amount is t multiplied by the speed we go at, which is underscore speed. Okay. Oh yeah, this, by the way, is the number of seconds it takes to move. So it's not quite speed, but it's good enough. And then y is equal to lerp. Oh, so in that case, I should divide it. Yeah. Pre-y, y2, t over underscore speed. And yes. Thank you for reminding me. I actually hate the fact they removed, I mean, no, it makes sense that you shouldn't put a semicolon, because that way you can chain multiple statements inside the same macro. But I always get confused, and I wish like something would tell you, you know, it's such a reflex, but semicolons, I wish there was something to help you. Or maybe just ignore the last semicolon you put. I don't know. Like require the last semicolon and just ignore it. That way you're always safe. Oh, but I guess then we'll have the problem of not knowing which one is the last semicolon. Or is it the whole line? I don't know how it works, but thanks for reminding me. So this should be moving our player, and we can actually quickly test that. If I put my player, oh, I need the player itself, which is right here. And I run it, we should just see a moving player to the right. Unknown script macro. Oh, I wrote Marco. Whoops. That should fix it. Okay, it's really slow because I forgot to define the actual size of the object of the tiles, which is 32. So this should be this multiplied by, I'm going to assume everything is 32 for now. Actually, I may make this a macro. right here. I'm gonna say tile width, just tile size is good enough. I'm gonna set that to 32. Now I wouldn't normally use a macro. Normally I would just, get it from the tile map because that's the safer way to do it. But I can't be bothered today. And yeah, 2D Realms, I realized that just before I saw your message, so. Yeah, typos are my #1 problem. So yeah, now we should see it moving at a normal speed. About 32 pixels every quarter second. That seems about right. Let's now give it movement. So what we're going to do is add an event. I'm actually going to move that to its own tab, so we have this just being the player. And I'm going to add the key press up. And here we're going to do set target direction. So I call it buffer because it's kind of like input buffering, but it's not quite accurate, but it's gonna get confusing later. I'm just gonna rename that to target. So I'm gonna say target equals, so this was up, and up we said was 1, or actually I can just go my enum, which was directions.up. I'm gonna copy that for quick things, and I'm now gonna add key press right. I'm gonna say directions.right, key pressed left, directions.left, and finally key pressed down, directions.down. The Waka Waka will probably be added, just because it won't work without it. So yeah, so now we actually set the direction. Inside here, we can say that if our t, well, I should probably do that up here. If t reaches, what I'll have here is a composite value. Var compensate t. So this is the extra t that we got. So if we needed only like a quarter of a second before reaching somewhere, but we stepped an entire half a second, we need to compensate for that extra amount we stepped. So here we're going to say if t was greater than underscore speed, which isn't really speed, but whatever. We're going to say t is equal to underscore speed, and ct is equal to underscore equals to t minus underscore speed, which means I'm going to have to put this right over here. This also means that we have now arrived. Ooh. Ooh, I could do this another way. I could set t back to 0. No, could set t. I'll do it that way. I'll do t minus equals underscore speed, which means I don't need my compensate value anymore. And then I can set my actual position to be the previous x and previous y to be the target. So I should probably paste this up here so I actually have it on hand. And pre-y equals y2. My x and my y should also be set to pre-x, y equals pre-y. So now we want to set our direction to be, yeah, so this is where we change our direction now. So we can only change once we reach the new tile. And so we basically say dir equals target. and target can stay the same, now that I think about it. That should about do it, as far unless I forgot something, which I probably did, but running the game should clear that up. Yeah, there is a mistake. Trying an index which is not a variable. So D for some reason. Oh, yeah. Let's remove some of the useless white space. So here basically we're changing our direction every time we reach the next tile. So now I can change my direction, and it changes when I reach the next thing. Now there will be a change to be made later with collisions, and that is if I press up but I cannot move up, it will keep the buffer until the next little bit. So I'm not entirely sure if that's how original Pac-Man did it, but it's a really kind of intuitive way of doing it, and it's easy to control as well. And it means you're always locked to that 32 by 32 grid, which is nice. The lerping bit is a bit weird, but it's the easiest way I found, without having to check positions all the time, which is a terrible idea because you end up with floating point errors and then, or you know, just simple DT errors. You end up overstepping and then you never stop. It's a mess. I really recommend doing that. If you want to be locked to a grid but still have the smooth transition, I really recommend using this lerp system. It works great. So if you're making like an RPG, like a Pokemon style movement, so on, it's yeah, I think it's a good way to do it. So that is it for movement, at least without there being the tile set. So let's create quickly walls to collide with. So let's create here. I'll call these walls. Let's F2 it. And I'm going to take my terrain, whatever. I should probably rename it, but that doesn't matter. I could recreate the original map, but I don't think that really matters. Instead, I'm going to create a simple test to do things. So I'm trying to find the one with up and down. I think it's this one. I'm going to create a couple things like this. I should probably make this... here we go. Then move upwards. Where is it? They should really have an option to like space them out so it's easier to see. That's gonna be difficult to do. I'm going to just have a very simple thing like that. See if I can walk in if I can move in a corridor. What happens at dead ends, etc. Because dead ends is actually something I haven't thought about. So just before starting, I quickly thought about how I would do this. I forgot to think about dead ends, so that's gonna be an interesting thing to test out. Where is it? It's right here, and this one right here. So this is gonna be good enough to test for now. Let's save that. Close the room. Alright, so what we want inside the create event is to get our tile map. So first we get the tile layer, which is layer get ID. Let me scroll down for you guys. And the name was walls. We then get our tile map, which is equal to layer underscore get tile map, is it? Or is it tile map get layer tile map get ID. There we go. Tile layer, and now we can start going here. So here we only want to change direction if it's possible. So we can do. We can update our x2 and y2, so we can say x2 is equal to our current x, which is pre-x, so let's just keep it as pre-x, because x could change later on. If I'm using x just for rendering purposes, it's possible that if for some reason I were to add like a shake effect or something, x would no longer be a valid value. So I'm going to stick to pre-x, which I know is going to always be right, since it's really the logic part of my game, not the graphics part. which by the way is a really important thing to do. If you're gonna make a larger style game, always try to separate your logic and your graphics so that you have the freedom to add some random graphic effect really easily without having to throw in extra variables. You already have everything at your disposal. That's why I like to keep the X and Y's for rendering, and if I have some more complex logic, which is, you know, like here stuck to a grid or something, I'll have separate variables for those. So it's going to be pre-x plus, and then it's d0 times tile size. Actually, I should probably keep my x and y's as grid coordinates instead. And I am totally doing that. So here I'm going to write pre-x equals x over div tile size. So the reason I'm doing this is it's going to be much easier to get information from our tile map later on. It's also a bit safer for the same reason as before, and it means I don't have to always, in the logic, always multiply by tile size and everything, which has nothing to do with the logic. Really, tile size is something to do with graphics. So here I'll multiply by tile size because that's graphics. And here I don't have to do it. So there's only one place to multiply by tile size, and it's all good. And then, oh yeah, I should probably say d equals direction, what did I call it? Dirs, and we want our target. So remember here we're checking whether or not we can actually move in that direction. y2 equals pre-y, sorry, plus d at position 1, so that's the y component of our direction. And then we can say if tile map get, and it's tile map at x2, y2, and then we want to extract our index. Now, some people don't extract the index using tile index mask, and that's a mistake. If you didn't use this here, any residual rotation or flipping of the map would be an issue. Now in Pac-Man that doesn't really matter because we're mostly going to deal with static maps, but if for some reason you wanted to change it such that you could rotate something, you know, maybe there was a level editor or something, and you get stuck with just something wrong, then that random like flipping or rotation bit is going to register and you're going to get a collision even though you shouldn't. So I'm going to put an exclamation mark to negate it right here. So only if there isn't anything in the direction, then we can change direction. We should also say that if we hit into a wall, so if there is something, and if there is something, and if our direction is equal to our target, double equals right here, then we should stop moving, which is something I haven't actually thought about. There is an easy way actually. We can go inside. This is why it's really nice to have this right here, because here we can have none, and here we can just simply insert 0, 0, and just like this we have no direction. And I don't even have to change the code, it's gonna work, because I use the enums everywhere, so I'm already in the right direction. So yeah, I can just say dir equals directions dot none. Again, proving that code organization is super important. Right, so now I'm super slow because of this. Multiplied by tile size. Multiplied by tile size. Here we go. This should work. And here we stop moving. We glitch a bit for some reason, but then I can go up, left, right. And here if I press left, I already pressed left, but I didn't move left because I couldn't yet. Now I'm gonna press up and then left. I can't move left yet, and as soon as I can, I move to left, which is exactly the way we want it to work. So again, I'm pressing up, already pressed up, and you know, it will keep remembering the fact I want it to go up, but it will only go up as soon as it's free. Now there is a bit of a glitch here where you can see the Pac-Man kind of getting stuck in the wall a bit, and I suspect that's because of actually, I'm not entirely sure. Before we change direction, it could be something to do with this here. Now, to be fair, I can actually I can remove this section because later on I'll set everything correctly. So let's run again, see if that was the issue. Now there's still a bit of a weird thing where I go back. So I set my pre-x to x2 and not A and B equals not A and B. What? Why? Why is this Oh yeah. I don't know what the order of precedence is. I think not would have taken precedence over and. That's a good good find. Now I still see a bit of weird movements there. Oh wow, that was strange. So if I already changed my target, I'll move through, of course. If I cannot move in either my current direction or my target direction, this is what's gonna happen. I should probably get to changing that. So here I say that if my direction is the same as my target. Okay, so move if you. Okay, I know. I shouldn't put else here. I should just say. Wait, no. I need two collision checks. I need to say if I can move in my current direction. Otherwise, make sure you can still move in the same direction. I'm just going to copy that. I should probably abstract it away into separate scripts, but I'll do that another time. Then if there's nothing here, right, I need to update my x2 again. Reuse the same dir as before, and then I need to say dir equals none, directions of none. And I want to go over here and remove this. So basically, if there is something in the way, so first of all, if you can go in the desired direction, go there. Otherwise, if you cannot, go any further, stop. And that should fix the weird bug we're having. So I'm going to test this right now by pressing down, and yeah, it's now working. It's also stopped. It also stopped being weird, like doing the weird little jerky motion it did. So this is all good. I can now have a moving Pac-Man. It's actually pretty nice, smoother than I thought it would be. And this is all delta timed as well, which is really nice, because it means I can now lower the game speed to like 5 FPS and it'll play the same. So time to add little things to eat. Kuro Ren is asking if I'm still playing around with libgdx, and yeah, I'm making a game in it, actually, like a game that I hope to actually finish someday. The trouble is I'm always doing things differently. I really like, I'm making a turn-based game, but for some reason I really want to make it with a entity component system, which is this really weird way of organizing your games. Well, it's not weird, it's actually pretty common now. But for turn-based games, it gets a bit strange. And I'm starting to ask myself, like, if I'm not just using an entity component system because I really want to. I'm tempted to start it again for a third time, but write it in a sensible manner. So I've got this going. Though to be fair, the only problem I'm having right now is with something completely unrelated to the entity component system, so I should mostly be fine. Yes, I wanted to add little pickups. So I'm going to create a new sprite. It's going to be S pickup. Let's edit the image. I don't know what they were called. They were called like pellets or something. Let's edit the image, and we're going to have image. I don't need to resize actually because I just need 32 by 32. Oh, numlock, it was off. Actually, I'm going to put it back to 16 because I need to know my centers. So that was a lot of wasted time. So I'm going to add nice. So this will be the small palette right here. Oh, it doesn't fit. So I'm actually going to take the size under and probably good enough. And then the large palette would be. Let's make it nice and large so we can actually see it easily. The difference, just in case. So you have the small palette, the large palette, and this is the empty tile. Let's go ahead and put it in the room. I'm going to add a tile. I'm going to call it not tab, F2 palettes. Oh, I should probably make a tile set for it because it's going to be pretty useless without a tile set. Resource tile sets. Also, I don't know if you realize, but I make in Game Maker now. I make everything using tile sets. It's just so much neater than, well, it depends what for, but like I don't tend to work with action games anymore. So I like the idea of having tile sets for anything that's not really action. Or I guess Pac-Man is kind of action, but like it has this this rigidity to the movement. So, right, so I'm just placing a couple palettes to test, and save that. Let's go back to the player, to the create event, and we're going to create. So this was the tile map. Let's have a palettes layer equals layer get ID palettes. And then palette. Let's remove the S because it sounds a bit weird. Palette map equals layer. Yes, layer. Get. Layer tile map get. So what I think of the 2.1 update. It's Kuruben who asked this. Actually, to me, it doesn't change much. It has a debugger, which I never used because, well, I don't like using the debugger to look at my variables. It's just a bit weird. I just tend to use printing statements. I've used it a bit when I had really complex data structures, but even then, I usually just print them out. And performance-wise, I've never had any issue that, you know, I didn't know why I had that issue, so the debugger was never too useful to me. I haven't really played around with new one yet, but it doesn't seem like it does much more than it did, you know, in Game Maker 1.4 and everything. It has this new like tree coloring, which honestly I don't care about. I don't see what's the point of naming all my objects. I mean, sometimes I do get confused between my sprites and my objects, but I mean, I would anyways if it was colored. The code folding is kind of useless because my code never gets that long. Like, I don't know what I would fold over here. Maybe like collision checks, but then again, it's not that hard to score the right bits right here. And when my code does get long enough, I'm making different scripts because most of the time my scripts are reusable. I don't know. I don't think I'm still looking for a better GML. Alright, so we want to be munching on pellets. So right here is when we get to the new destination. And we can say that as soon as we get to the new destination, we munch any pellets there. So I can say, we can do it very simply right now. Tile map set. The tile map element ID is pellet map. Apparently not. Oh, I put a. Oh, I started camel casing. Let's not camel case for now. Gee, I'm gonna camel case this. I know I didn't camel case this up here, but yeah. Pellet map. Total data I'm gonna set to 0, and x and y is gonna be pre-x and pre-y. So he basically eats any pellet that's there. What features could I welcome in GML? Definitely structures, or you know, some kind of light object, but I really want proper typed structures, because I don't know, I cannot deal with arrays any longer. I mean, I've been working on gmstruct, which is like this code generation tool, which generates structures, well, code that emulates structures in a way using arrays. But it's just, I mean, it already does structures just fine, it works just fine, but I wanted to add methods and everything. That's taking a lot of time. I mean, yeah, for structs, that already covers it. What I would really want to see is being able to do something like var function equals, and then, you know, a method body or something. That would be great. So that I could basically write polymorphic objects whenever I wanted to, much more easily than now. So if you've seen my object orientation tutorial in GameMaker, I did it with big switch statements and everything. It was a mess. Or execute scripts, but that's also kind of a mess. I would really like to see being able to define scripts like that, and also being able to call them later on. So if I said function equals scr scripts or whatever, I would like to be able to just say function like this instead of script execute. That would be amazing as well. Right, so as you could see, I'm going to play that again, because I talked about random stuff all over my game. You can now munch on the pellet, it's working just fine. And it also doesn't look too bad. I was afraid that I would have to do it when I reach the middle of the tile, but actually, it's looking, you know, pretty good. So, I think what's left are ghosts. I didn't think it would go that fast. How long have I been streaming for? Does anyone... I didn't actually check. I think I started at 9 or something. I started around at 9 and a bit. So it's only been an hour, and we've got basic Pac-Man without monsters yet. So let's add them in. I'll start with just a simple ghost. Yeah, under an hour. I'm getting faster. Either I'm tackling easier games, or I'm getting faster at making games, which is kind of the point of this exercise. Resize all frames 32 by 32. Also, I guess I can't remember if my Bomberman game, how I did movement. I don't think it was the same. I think I had free movement in Bomberman. When is the game going 3D? It's not. I mean, not today at least. Also, I'm sorry if you can hear like doors slamming in the background. I don't know how if my mic is picking it up or not. So let's draw a stupid ghost. Kind of looks something like that. Right, it's something like that. And some nice white eyes. Let's give him Sonic eyes, which are like connected to each other. Let's grab that blue color again and just even that out. Okay, I should be a bit taller, I think, but I'll just shave off a couple pixels on each side. That should be good. Alright, I think this is looking okay. Who's slamming all the doors? I don't know, I don't know. And Yeah, I'm not looking forward to exceptions because, okay, I don't mind. Exceptions are a good idea, but I don't think they're a good idea for Game Maker because, well, I don't know. Really, I think we should have error codes in it, like good error codes, not like C-style error codes, but something that doesn't break up our game loop. Like Game Maker's like code flow is already kind of weird. Adding exceptions to the mix is going to be a huge mess, and you know. What they call like newcomers to Game Maker are going to find it really really weird. I think error codes would be a much better idea, but I already sent suggestions to Yo-Yo Games and they rejected it. They're really set on using exceptions, I think, if I remember correctly. Yeah. Though, I mean, if they're done right, if they don't like, if they propagate upwards too much, it's gonna be a mess because like if your exceptions go up the call stack too much, you just don't know where you are anymore. And if they don't go up at all, you're stuck with like writing throw everywhere, and that's just not a great experience. I don't know. I hate having to try catch everything, even though I already checked the things. You know, if like no exceptions and I need to catch a no exception, well, you never have to do that, but say it was like something like file not found. If I already checked that the file exists, I shouldn't have to try catch it. It's really frustrating. But back to Game Maker stuff. Let's create my ghost object. And we're gonna try to make this somewhat like original Pac-Man, meaning that our ghosts have some interesting things. By the way, if you didn't do that already, I really recommend that you organize your workspace like I am right now, where you have one tab for each object. It makes it super easy to know what you're working with. I would really like it for like there to be a mode which works just like that without the workspace, with just a really easy like button down here or something to change between the different events. But for now, we need to use the right-click menu. All right, so let's init our ghost. So the same thing we had before, we're gonna have a direction, which we're gonna set to directions.right. We're gonna set a target, which is, ooh, this is gonna be strange. So the targets in for the ghost is actually going to be where they want to go, and that's going to change depending on the ghost, but we're going to implement the most basic ghost first. So I could set up my target to be an array, or I could set it up to be target X and target Y. I'm going to set it up as target X and target Y because there's no real good reason to have it as an array, at least for now, not that I can think of at least. So for South Pole, so the different bits of code here, you can just drag them around and I'll create a new tab. And you know, if you said open this piece of code, you can grab that tab and just drop it anywhere along here, and I'll create a new tab. And it's going to be a full screen code tab, which is really useful. All right, so we have target X and target Y. We also want, is that all? We need the speed, set it to 0.25. Can't think of much else. We probably need the tile maps as well. But I think that's about it. Oh, and T. We're gonna need T. All right, so let's add in a step event for our ghost. And actually we're gonna have a lot of the same. No, GMS1 doesn't even have workspaces. GMS1 is weird. It has tab scripts now, but they were kind of weird because they wouldn't show up in the edit and the tree. Yeah. GMS1, you just keep using Windows. There isn't really a big full screen tab like that. Okay, so I'm gonna reuse the same movement code and I'm gonna try to abstract it into its own. That's gonna be difficult actually, because there's this part right here which feeds into that part. Okay, I'm gonna have to write pretty much I'm gonna have to duplicate some code because part of the changing direction code is in the middle of my movement code, which is gonna be a bit tricky if I don't do it otherwise. So what I can have is that same code right here, and that very same t increase. Where do I increase t over here? Oh, right at the start. T plus equals dt. And yeah, I'm gonna copy that down here, right here. So actually, the ghosts have states, but I'm gonna start off writing the basic chase state, or I can't remember what it was called. It has a scatter, and then it has chase. Yeah, that's chase. And so I think the basic rule is you go to whatever tile is the nearest to you, and they only happen at each junction, which means I'm actually going to have to create a new tile set to denote junctions. Yeah, that's right. Which I'm gonna do later. Actually, I'm gonna have to do right now, because otherwise you would always like move along the corridor in a really weird way. That's why we need to use junctions. So I'm going to go into the workspace, create new sprite. I'm gonna call that S junctions. Wait for it to load. And let's just give it a nice green rectangle, which isn't too big, like that. Is that the same size? That seems weird. Let me cheat and make it a perfect 16 by 16 rectangle. Oops. All right, so that's my junction, and let's create a tile set from it. TS junctions, and let's already put them in the room so we don't forget. These are going to be junction, and we're going to get this one. Oh, and I should probably set it to 32 by 32. I wish you could put like macros in here or something. I wish like an easier way to set these things up. So there's a junction right here. I should probably give it a more interesting map to work in. Whoops. Oh. Because if we have a really boring map, we're not going to be able to check if the AI is working quite the right way. Next time, maybe I should like make all the boring stuff beforehand, like creating levels and everything. I don't know what you guys feel about it, if you guys find that part interesting or not. I certainly wouldn't. And no, I won't. Yeah, suggestions to make swastikas and everything, which is a bad idea. All right, just gonna cap that one off over here. I'll do it here actually. I think this test level's pretty much good for now. Let's add the junctions in because the AI won't work without them. And let's put one, actually technically the junctions right here and right here. Press X to flip tiles. Ooh, that's really cool. Yeah, but then I wouldn't be able to use my auto tiling. Though I guess I wasn't... Oh, I have auto tiling set up and I'm not even using it. Oh wow, I've been wasting so much time. I forgot I set up auto tiling. Okay, well that's gonna make it easy because it means I can just draw my level, which is a very exciting level. Nothing like the original, but that doesn't matter. Alright, let's go back to my junctions. This is technically a junction, this is technically a junction, here too. Yeah, technically speaking, a dead end is kind of like a junction, so. Alright, I think I've got all the junctions, seems about right. Let's turn them off so we can't see them. And let's start writing the code for our thing. So right here we're gonna copy this, we're gonna have a junk layer, and a junk map. And junk map, I'm gonna camel case it. Yeah, I think that way you can see like also like the junction map and everything. I think that's a kind of an important part of the logic of the game. Actually, this is one thing that people don't realize. The room editor is actually pretty powerful once you start using, you know, elements of, you know, like extra tile maps to get more logic and so on. You can end up with like something much more powerful than you think. What I like to do, for instance, is like coloring different objects to link them together. I've already made a tutorial on that. It's a really powerful thing. Okay. Right. We want to evaluate stuff once we reach. That's the wrong one. So this shouldn't be walls. This should be junctions, and that should be junk layer. Save that. Go to step. Here we say if t is greater or equal to, no, greater than underscore speed, t minus equals underscore speed. So yeah, it's important not to reset this to 0. Otherwise you end up losing some time. So if you did overstep, then you still want that the amount you overstepped by to fit into the next step. That's an important point when using double timing. Lots of people forget that, and they end up, most of the time it doesn't really matter, you won't notice it. But if you want a really stable simulation, that's how you do it. And it's not much more code. It's, you know, instead of setting to 0, you subtract speed and you're good. So we have that. We want to set pre-x to x2 and pre-y to y2. I'm not being very consistent with my naming schemes. Like sometimes I use underscores, sometimes I don't. Usually what I have is underscores at the start if it's a built-in variable I don't want to use, or if I want to hide a global variable. I'll use underscores in the middle if it's a temporary variable. Here it's not, so it doesn't make any sense. And then I'll use camel case for instance variables. I'm not being consistent at all with anything here. But I mean, until there's a properly enforced, well, not enforced, but like a proper standard, I'm not gonna worry too much about it. We want to set our x. No, we can leave the x out. I can't remember what else we do in the step event. This is munching on pets. I said that because I'm gonna forget later on what that really does. I should probably start commenting a bit. So this is check collisions and turn, and I think I understand the rest. This is same dir. Here we go. That should be good enough. There we go, munching. Okay, we can start writing some ghost code. So instead of saying here we just always check for next turn, but instead what we want to do is see if we reached a junction. So we want to say if tile map get at, so it's going to be junk map. Apparently not. Whoops. Typos. Junk map at position pre-x. It really shouldn't be called pre-x anymore, because really it's the current position, but we all know what it means. It's kind of the position that's kind of like the real tile position we're in, it's kind of like the previous position, because we're technically moving to the next one. So here, if we reached a junction, we want to do the actual thing. So here we reached junction. Oh yeah, don't forget to end it with tile mask index. No, tail index mask. So we've reached it. I can hide this, can't I? Yeah. What am I thinking? Yes, we need to check, we need to find out what the possible directions are, and there are 8 different positions. So what I'm going to do is create a new macro. I'm actually going to first create a new global and then a macro. And this is going to be adjacents, and these are all possible adjacent tiles. So we're going to have one to the right. We're going to have one upwards. Oh, I guess I could just use dirs. That's exactly the same as dirs. We're all good. So I can actually say for var I equals 0, I is smaller than 4 I plus plus. Var d, oh, I already used d. Let's just reuse d. We don't need d anymore, so we can reuse it. D equals directions I. So here what we're doing, let me explain first before we jump into the code. We're going to check every single tile around it, and if we can move inside it, we will check the distance to the player, and if the distance, and we check the smallest distance, and we go there, if that makes any sense. So but here I'm going to say go to nearest to player. So we say var nearest equals -1 for now. Actually, there's no harm in setting it to 0, because we're going to go through 0. We're going to go through all of them anyways. And we can say var min distance, which is the smallest distance we found. And we're going to set that to a huge number, which has to be bigger than any other distance. And so normally if you know a bit about algorithms, what you would do is first the first elements and then have the for loop, but that means an extra bit of repeating code, so I prefer to do it that way. It's technically slightly less efficient. You're doing one more check, but it's not going to matter. I'm going to set that to room. Let's just set a big number. 6 million. Why not? Infinity, let's set that to infinity inside the quotation marks. This is because there'll never be a distance bigger than 6 million, so we're safe. It doesn't really matter what you use. No number will be more efficient than another, unless you're running on some incredibly old software machine, like an Atari or something. But that's not the case. Okay, so we have the direction, then we want to get the distance. So we can say var dist equals distance. Let's do distance to point. Point distance actually is what I'm looking for. We're going to find the distance between the tile we're looking at, which is pre-x plus d0 pre-y plus, actually let's abstract this away, say var underscore x equals pre-x plus d0. Let's actually do x2. Can we reuse x2? Let's not reuse x2 just in case. Var underscore y equals pre-y plus d at position 1. So this is the tile we're looking at. And if and then we find the distance between underscore x and underscore y, and then the player is pre-x and pre-y. So player, ooh, we don't have a player. What we have to do, so I could say O player, but this is bad form. So instead, I'll teach you a nice trick. You can go onto your player right here, double click it if you go into the instance, and you can give it a name. And I like to call them, to start them with an I, and I have I player, like so. And now I can refer to I player, and it's referring to the instance directly, which is quite a lot neater than referring to the object instead. So now I can refer to I player, which is the player instance. So I player dot pre-x and I player dot pre-y. Now that's the most basic ghost, which is going to look at the position of the player. Other ghosts will look for in front of the player or something like that. To do this, I'll eventually create functions which will return the target, and then we can, you know, in the creation code, we can change it. So you guys are actually working on a pools menu. That's pretty cool. It's actually something I've been thinking about, but never really thought about it enough. It's making a tutorial on pools menus, because there's lots of different ways to do it. And the problem is it really depends on your game a lot of the time. I'm watching on FPS, that's nice. Are you doing it in Game Maker? The naming trick, I cannot get enough. I love using the room editor when I can. I see too many people realizing that the room editor has problems and doing it other ways. But the truth is, the room editor can be powerful if you know how to leverage it. It's not perfect, it's like it. I mean, yeah, it's not perfect. Yeah, I didn't think about that infinity trick. So Jotace is saying that you can do, you can divide by 0. Then you get infinity, but I'm not sure if then it will work with smaller than. Yeah, I'm not sure if it worked with smaller than, so I'm just going to keep it to this number. If you tell me in the chat that it does work with smaller than and does register as the biggest number there is, then I'll probably make a macro for it, or make like a global or something. So I've got the distance, which is point. I really, by the way, this is probably a suggestion I should file in, have an infinity keyword. And a max value and everything. Though I guess that would be insanely huge because those are all float numbers. So we have the distance, and then I can say if dist is smaller than min dist equals dist, and nearest equals I. And I'm not going to set it to the array or anything, or I could actually. There's nothing stopping me. But I guess it's nicer just to keep it as an index. Less memory copying around. It's probably a bit safer as well for now. Always be cautious with Game Maker. So now we have the nearest target location. I haven't set up collisions yet, but I'll do so in just a bit. Now we can say what can we say? We have nearest equals 0. We have the nearest. Oh, it does? Okay, well, after this, I'll set up the infinity. I wouldn't normally bother that much, but, you know, just for correctness sakes, in case one day I want to make a level which is 6 million pixels wide. So, oh yeah, now we want to set our D, we want to say, so this is if we've reached, this is inside this, so this is if we've reached a junction right inside here. So now, right over here, we want to say, set the direction. And actually, we're really lucky because our nearest is actually holding a direction. So I can just say dir equals nearest. And I'm very happy with how this turned out. It's quite neat. So yeah, dir is actually a direction. And because we kept it as a direction, we can set our dir directly to it, which is incredibly nice. So I'm quickly going to add collisions first. So right here we want to continue if it's not a possible direction. So I'm going to say if tile map get, so it's going to be tile map at, I should probably have this right here. So here we're going to say check collision. So if a tile map at position underscore x underscore y, oh yeah, and tile ID, tile, what is it? Index mask, here you go. Then we want to continue. Now, continue basically go to the next iteration of the loop. So it's basically not doing this part, but it's still gonna iterate. So it's like kind of like the opposite of break in a way. Instead of stopping the loop, it's skipping this iteration of the loop. So basically we're not gonna factor it inside our minimum distance, which is a lot nicer because I was a bit afraid of having too many curly braces all around. Continue is a nicer way to do it. Yeah. So now we have collisions. One last thing is I want to have infinity set up. So here I'm going to define infinity. We're going to say var underscore equals, underscore should work, equals 0. And then global dot underscore infinity equals 1 divided by a. And then I can say hashtag macro infinity equals global dot infinity. Now, yes, once again, you could totally just use the global. I just like using macros that way. It's a bit of a weird thing. I'm not sure if it's good practice or not, but here we go. Now I'm actually using infinity, which is nice. I should probably say right here that if the nearest is equal to infinity, then there's something that went horribly wrong. So let's show error. I'm stuck. So this is if for some reason he gets stuck somewhere. Let's throw an error, even though it shouldn't ever happen. But at least that way we know that's what happens when he gets stuck. We know it's because nearest is still equal to infinity. I think that's essentially it. We can just open our room up and place in our ghost. Oh, I should probably give my ghost a sprite, because without a sprite it's going to be hard to see where he is. And let's place him right here. Let's just make sure we still have the junctions. Yep. Ooh, one thing to note, if we set his direction to be 0 at first, so let's place him in a way that he can actually move in that direction. And let's run. And he should be moving first to the right, and as soon as he reaches the junction, he must go up. So there's an unexpected symbol somewhere. Oh, yeah, no equals in macro. And no this either. And is supposed to remains more than 4 and stuff. Oh yes, that's right. Directions now has directions.none. Ooh, thank you for reminding me that. So at ChatGPT 5, because there is directions none, and we want to ignore directions none. What I could do is create a something to like have a start and end, have size at the end, so I can do more than size. I may do that direction, though I may keep it like that. I can shrink the code. Is it big enough? I don't know, because I'm also something is not working. In reference directions not existing. What? Oh, that's right. It's steers, isn't it? Yeah. So you're saying I can make my code smaller. Yeah, I think I may do it because it's a bit big. Is this okay? Because this is small enough for me, I think. Yeah, as I said, I'm now streaming at 720p because my computer will die of heat otherwise. What did I do? A not set before reading it. How is that possible? Oh, I called it underscore. Fair enough. What is this? Not set before reading it. Ghost pre underscore x plus. Okay, so apparently my ghost. Oh, I had. Oh yeah. I still need my actual positions. So it's gonna be x div tile size, and then pre-y div tile size. Alright, so it's actually working. It's gonna be chasing me now. Okay, I am actually kind of proud. If it's a local variable, I don't see the problem with it. And see that? He's now confused because I'm... Which is... I don't know how good that is. Why is he moving down and then thinking there's a junction? That's not supposed to happen. You should only change directions in junctions. Why div and not just... So that I don't have remainders at the end. Because I'm dealing with tile maps, it should be integers. So div, make sure the answer is rounded down. Which means I won't have any problems if there are any... Okay, so see, this is really interesting. He's changing before he reaches a junction. So clearly I've done something wrong. Let's see what that is. Yeah, so I think... Did I... Yeah, I don't see why he's changing. He should only be changing when he reaches a junction. If anyone can spot the problem. Div rounds up for negative numbers? Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it rounds up. It leaves out the remainder. So with negative numbers, the remainder would be negative. So by removing the remainder, you end up with rounding up. It rounds towards 0. Let's put it that way. Well, JC, if you have any questions about the code, it's actually not too bad. I use this trick a lot. This directions, storing them in arrays, and then having an array of arrays. I think I used the same thing in my Bomberman game, maybe? Yeah, I think I used it for the explosion. If one day I make like a more quick tip thing, it's definitely a tip that I found really useful. I mean, like it's a substitute for like classes and structs and other in like OO languages. Okay, so yeah, it should really only work here, so I don't know why. I really don't know why. Oh, could it be that I'm looking for junctions and I named it junction? Yeah, that's the problem. So this is something I wish was a bit nicer. It shouldn't return 0, it should return 1 if you don't, -1 if you don't have the right thing. Right, let's see if this still works. Yeah. So see, he's going to the next junction for changing, which, according to what I saw online, is what is supposed to happen. Though that doesn't, yeah, I guess it's harder to test in a real game because you actually die if you hit the ghost. So yeah, that is, I mean, the blue ghost done. Let's start making the AI a bit nicer. Now, what I'm going to do is have a thing which is called get target player, and this will return an array with 2 components, the x and y component of a target, and this one will get the target at the player location. And that way, by having it in the script, I can first of all call it really easily over here. And then it also means that I can have all the same code base, but use script execute on a script variable, allowing me to quickly and easily, create different ghosts. It should be nicer that way. So let's go ahead and copy all of this code. And let's give it a description and abstract away some variables into some proper local variables. So at desk, this will be get target at player location. Get target towards, I guess, target player location. Okay, that means that I'm never using my target X and target Y, which makes sense. I'm going to remove this. I actually don't need it because it's always going to be relative to the player. And I'm going to instead later have a target script. Anyhow, JC saying, sat down and read it carefully. Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, it's not that difficult. The main tricky part is mostly due to the... Oh, why does this not work? Is mostly due to the... I think the directions tricks I'm using, like the array of arrays. It's just handy because you can use a for loop to go through all, to like to kind of go around. I don't need this anymore. So nearest equals 0, Mendes equals infinity. Doop doop doop. I can remake this a local variable. So this and this shouldn't be right. So I need to have as an input the current X and Y location. So I'm just gonna have X and Y, and then say var underscore X. Oh, I'm already using that. Var X pause, I guess, is going to be equal to argument 0, sorry, and var Y pause equals argument 1. And right over here, I can say X pause and Y pause instead. Which, by the way, would be much better names for the pre-X and pre-Y I had before. But at the time, I wasn't quite thinking I would use it that way. I could just reuse tilemap, and I think I will because there's no reason not to. And I can use iPlayer and iPlayer right here. It's just fine. If I were making this in a more full game, I would probably abstract those away as variables as well, such that I could more easily change it if I wanted to target something else, you know, another location. And here I will say, actually I could just rename that to, yeah, but actually no, that makes no sense because later on my scripts will actually take into account the player direction, everything, so it's better to keep it that way. So here I'm just going to say return nearest, which is actually a direction, but it's kind of like the nearest tile in that direction. And right here I can say dir equals, oh yeah, I can remove that. Click paste you here, and let's just say dir equals get target player. The arguments are pre-X and pre-Y. Let's save this and see if it works correctly. It should. I didn't change any logic. So as long as we don't get any errors, it's a good indication that everything is working fine. So let's quickly go under our create event, and here is where the magic is going to happen, because right here I can say, actually, before we do that, let's duplicate the script that we see here and call that to get target ahead, I guess, and it's going to look ahead of the player. And so what we're going to do right here is do, well, first of all, get the player direction. Var player direction X is going to be equal to iPlayer dot dir. I'm going to do dir's iPlayer dot dir. So this is the X component of the player direction, and var pdy equals dir's at iPlayer dot dir. And then right here, here I can say var tx, which is target X, is going to be equal to iPlayer dot pre underscore X plus pdx times 4. So it's going to look 4 units ahead of the player, which I think is what the pink ghost did. So same thing for y, and then instead of targeting the x and y location of the player, I can do tx and ty, and now we have the very same script, but it's going to target 4 pixel, not 4 pixels, but 4 grid units in front of the player. Here is where it gets really interesting, because inside my ghost create event, I can say script equals get target ahead without the parentheses. And this is just going to store, no, sorry, player. And this is just going to be the get target player is just going to be the script itself. And then in here, I can say, instead of executing script directly, I can say script execute script with pre-x and pre-y. Which means that now, actually, I'm already depending on the fact that I have information, which means I'm just going to actually remove this. And in each of these, reuse pre-x and pre-y. The reason for that is that I'm already depending on the fact that this object knows things like the tile map, etc. So there isn't much point in like dealing with extra variables to pass in. I would ordinarily do this a bit differently. Maybe an action actor model would be a bit nicer for some things here, but it's gonna be okay. Right, so right now what we have is in the create event, we set up our scripts, and in the step event we execute that script whenever we want to know the new direction. What this means is that first of all, it will still run the same, like that, but it means that I can go inside my room, create another instance of our ghost. That's my sprite. But this time I can double click it and say creation code script equals get target ahead. And now whenever it's trying to find what direction it wants to go in, it's going to use that get target ahead instead of the get target player. I'm pretty sure this will execute after the creation code, which is exactly what we want. I'm going to choose something else as well. I'm going to grab my ghost. Okay, so GameMaker has hidden palette functions, which you cannot use yet. And really the best way of doing it right now would be using a palette function, because it could change the ghost palette. But it's not going to let me do that. So instead, I'm going to go here, edit image. I'm going to paint everything white, which means we're going to lose our eyes, but I really hope that they would do this differently. Now I can make this ghost nice and pink, and this ghost can be blue. And now we have two ghosts with different behavior. One will chase ahead of the player, the other one will chase at the position of the player, or effectively one tile behind, in a way. So first of all, my ghost just decided to be in the wrong place. Here you go. Okay, so there's only ever one player object, that's true, but it's not okay. Here is an error. Okay, so let's talk about that idea of iPlayer, which I named the instance of. The reason for that is it's good practice to do it that way. First of all, I can now add another player without having any problems. More importantly, it's actually quite costly for the referencing by objects is actually quite costly. Now, it doesn't matter, but you know, internally what GameMaker does isn't very nice. It's looking at every single object and taking the first one. Or maybe it's the last one, I don't quite remember. It's not super nice. It's much cleaner and much more accurate to use iPlayer, because what you're referencing in the code is not the object, it's really the instance. So referencing the object is kind of something that GameMaker allows you to do, but it's technically not very correct. So it's much nicer to do it that way. So we had an error. Let's have a look at that error. Variable is malformed. Really? Apparently we have a malformed variable. Why is this? Okay. at line 17. Am I not allowed to use tx? Am I doing something wrong? Does anyone know? Well, let's try underscore tx. See if that fixes anything. It's possible that internally they're using the variable and they forgot to let me use it. No, still same problem. Variable is malformed. Underscore tx I player pre. Let's put that back to tx and ty then. So I don't know why I'm malforming my variable. Oh, yes. It shouldn't say variables malformed. That's completely wrong. I'm trying to multiply an array. Yeah, I did something wrong. I should say var d equals. There's player.dir. And then I want d at position 1. And d at, 0. Yeah. So remember, dirs contains an array of arrays. So when I do this, I get an array back, and the array contains the x and the y components I want to move in. Let's do this instead. Yep, I think it's all good, and it's not going ahead of me by 4 pixels, which if we wanted to test, it's going to be a bit tricky. I'm going to have to get it right here, and then if it's in that direction, see, it didn't go back. It went ahead of the direction I was going. Same here. It should have gone back. The blue one would have gone back, but it wants to go ahead of me, not inside into me, which you can trick it. So you can trick it by going in the same direction as just at the right moment. See, it went back when the blue one would not. So yeah, that is how you can get different ghosts. Now, there is another state to the ghosts. It's not only the chasing state we have now. We also get the scattering. Now, I don't actually know how they scatter, so I'm gonna have to read up. I have it online here on my phone. And so they have individual ghost things. So there's Blinky, there's the pink ghost, which targets ahead, I think. Well, I'm not going to be coding anything if I can't get this scattering behavior. Okay, first of all, I did something wrong. Technically, whoops, I didn't mean to do that. Technically, he should be red. So let's make him red. Do any of you guys watching know the scattering behavior of the ghosts? Okay, so the red ghost is a bit weird. Okay, the pink one. Okay, they're not actually describing the... Okay, I did not see the scattering behavior anywhere. Okay, I'm not going to spend this whole thing reading, so instead I'm going to invent my own scattering behavior, which is going to be whenever you reach a junction, go randomly. So I'm going to create a new script, and this is going to be get target scatter. Yeah, there's like 5 or something different ghosts, and they each have slightly different behavior. I mean, the red one, the red one will go directly behind the ghost, or like, you know, in the same position effectively. The pink ghost will go 4 tiles in front of the player. And I don't know about the rest, I didn't actually check. Yeah, I didn't know either until I researched it. Actually, it's my stepbrother who's also studying to make games, and well, not games. He's more like computer science. But one of their assignments was kind of working on a Pac-Man game, and yeah. So get target scatter is actually going to be very similar to all of this. So I'm going to put it in here and where is my... Oh, it's right here. Okay, let's put it here, paste it, and this will get target random. So what we're doing for random is we could randomly select, but then we could get stuck for a long time. What I'm going to do is have a list of possible directions. So I'm going to say var dirs, oh no, var possible dirs equals empty array. And just for simplicity's sake, I'm going to say var n equals 0. And that's going to be the same as the size as this, but I don't want to have to use really long text. And then we're going to, right here, instead of doing all this complicated distance checking, we're going to say possible dirs at position n equals n plus plus. So we're going to increment, we're going to cheat and increment n at the same time as referencing it. It's going to be equal to I. So these are all the possible directions. Here we say if n is equal to 0, then you're stuck. There's no possible directions. And here we're going to say that we're going to var, let's just use I again, is going to be equal to I random n. So we're going to take a random number between 0 and the number. Actually, I'm going to check if this is including or exclusive. Yeah, it will be inclusive, I think. So I need to n minus 1. And then I can say return possible moves I. Save that. Now we want our ghost to start off scattering, and then we want them to chase. So we're going to have two things. We're going to have a chase script, and we're going to have a scatter script, which is always going to be the same. So, well, just for, you know, just to be safe, in case one day we want to make it different, we're going to do get target scatter. And then inside this, we can have a state here. State equals chase or what we can do, we can be very weird. Okay, we can say chasing. How do you spell chasing? Equals 0. So we're not chasing yet. Is that how you spell it? That doesn't seem right. I'm terrible with spelling, if you couldn't tell. What is this? State equals of the union. Oh, yes. Yeah, it's with an S. Of course it's with an S. Yeah, I don't know why I wanted to put a C there. So we say chasing is 0, and then we can say states or scripts equals chase script. Oh, wait, no, that's going to be annoying. Okay, we're just going to just leave it like that. I want it to be clever, but it was going to be not that neat anyways. Oh, wait, I have it right here. It wasn't going to be that neat, so yeah. Here I can say if chasing, we use the chasing script. Actually, I can just say script equals scatter script. Wait, no, this is where we get the problems. Yeah, we get the problems because of the create events happening before the creation code. So we otherwise dir equals script execute. And it was scatter script. So inside our create event, inside our room, inside our creation code, we don't want to change you because you're all right. And we want to say chasing script. Now here I'm using the creation code. You could also just create new like children objects and give them more properties. This is a bit easier though, I guess. It's annoying because you have to remember the variable names. I've asked already on the forums if they could add properties, like name properties that were easier to change in the room. I don't think I got a response from anyone from Yo-Yo Games yet, but I really hope that they will add it in. So now they'll all be scattering, so they should be going randomly. Let's make sure that works. So yeah, red is obviously going completely randomly. And then what we want is after some time, we could either use time or we can use a number of tiles. I think time is what they used, which should be fine because we're actually using delta timing, which means that we're always safe. So let's do that. Let's say, let's first we'll hide this. Let's just use a scatter timer, and let's set it to be equal to, let's say they scatter for like 4 seconds before they actually do something else. Then inside here we can say right at the end we can actually change the state. If not chasing, then scatter timer equals minus equals dt, and then if scatter timer is equal to or smaller or equal to 0, then we want to be chasing. And we're also going to reset the scatter timer for next use. That way when we go back to scattering, our scatter timer is already at 0 and it's all safe. The reason I'm not just doing minus minus is because we're not carrying into the next step, we're carrying into steps a long time ahead, in which case it's not gonna work that easily. So yeah, now they should be scattering, but after some time they should come to chase me after like 4 seconds, and we get something instead. Not set before reading it, so apparently I spelled something wrong. Oh, I called it chase script, not chasing script. And inside my create event, sorry, my creation code, I should really make that smaller. I have the right name as well. Chase script. Oops, that's not bad. And I'm also going to hide the junctions because we don't need to see them anymore. So yeah, I think we're getting close to the end of the stream. It's been about 2 hours. We have most of the mechanics working. Alright, so now they should be chasing me, I think. Yeah, so now they're chasing me. There's one more thing to add, and that's collisions, and you know, if you collide with a thing, you're dead. Maybe I should add the fact that you can eat them as well. I can still stream for like some time, so I may do that. I'm going to add not death just yet because it's easier to test if you don't die, but I'm going to test the fact that they become blue and they will move away from you. Now moving away from you is actually pretty simple. Actually that's a bit too many because it's gonna become very weird. Let's turn off the instances so we can see level a bit better, and let's turn these 2 off. There you go. That should be a good number. Turn the instances back in. Still missing Waka Waka. Yes, but I don't think I'll deal with audio. I'm sorry. It's just not code, and I like code. So also, I'm actually quite happy with the way my code turned out. It's actually not too boring to make a Pac-Man game. There's actually a couple elegant ways to do things. well, elegant, you know, within GameMaker's way of doing things. So what I'm going to do is create a new script, which is going to be duplicating this. I'm going to call it get target away. And this is going to be moving away from the player when they are almost dead. And really, I'm just going to change that to furthest, and maxedest, maxedest, and furthest, and furthest, and furthest. And then I'm going to set that to be -1 because distance is never bigger than -1. And then I'm going to do biggest, and I'm going to do equals to -1. I'm stuck. And now what we can do is inside here, say, we're going to first of all remember its color. So I'm going to say color equals image blend. And then we're going to say, what's the state when they're like edible? Like, I'm going to say there are, yeah, sure, edible. Edible equals false. Oh, chasing should be set to true as well. It's a bit weird. And inside my step, I should really say, oh, okay, I did that right. Ooh, and I should have edible timer. Let's say they're edible for like 3 seconds or something, so I don't have to wait too long. And then inside the step event, I can say if edible timer minus equals dt, if edible timer is smaller or equal to 0, edible timer equals 3, just reset it, and edible is equal to false. And yeah, that should be good. And right over here, we're going to say, before we check anything else, if edible, and here we're going to have an else. So if we're edible, we want to move away. So we're going to say dir equals get target away. Otherwise, if we're chasing, we want to be chasing, and otherwise it means we're scattering, so we're scattering. I should really be using a state machine around that time, but yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, I'll change it once later. So now what we want to do is have our player. I think we have it here. And we want to check what we eat. So we want to say var p equals tile map get pellet map 0 pre x, no, just pre x pre y. So this is what we ate, and then we can say if p is equal to 2, which is the pellets which makes the ghost go blue, we can say with ghost. So here we can reference the object directly, because what we're saying is with every ghost. It's a bit different before, whilst we were referencing, with iPlayer we're really referencing to a single instance, who we're saying with all ghost objects, which is a bit different. If we had for each or something, I would use that instead. And we can say edible equals true. And just like that, we're able to eat them. Well, we won't be able to eat them, but we'll be able to see. Oh, wait, no, I forgot about something. We should say image blend equals C blue. And then inside the ghost object, here we want to say image blend equals color. Now we should be able to see them turn blue and move away from us as soon as we eat a special pellet. So let's go ahead and eat that pellet, and all of a sudden we get an error. Yay. So what could it be? I'm also gonna group those together if I can. There you go. Get target away. Min dist should be max dist. Everything else seems right. And I think that's essentially going to be it. I'm not going to add collision and, you know, destruction because that's simple. But yeah, as soon as I eat this, they're now moving away. Whatever I do, they'll be moving away. Okay, that's not right. I just ate a pellet and it didn't reset their timer, which it really should. So yeah, as you can see, they're moving away for 3 seconds and then they move back towards me. And now I would be dead, but here we go, I eat it, and all of a sudden they reach the junction and they move away from me. Now, this is the problem with reaching the junction. It's that they also need to update when a state changes as well. But that you could easily do by, you know, having a script called update state or something like that. Anyhow, I think this is it for this stream. So thanks a lot for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it and like you learned a couple tricks and everything. Yeah, I think I have more consistent timetable now, so I should be able to do these once a week, nice and consistently. So yeah, I'll see you guys next time for hopefully a tutorial sometime next week, and then yeah, another stream. Also notice how you'll get some weird behavior with the pink ghost, which doesn't actually know pathfinding. It'll be interesting to see ghosts with actual pathfinding, which shouldn't be too bad. Alright, I'm going to stop the stream now. See you guys. How do I do that? There it is.